Hello, everyone. Happy Monday, and welcome to another edition of Sports Speak. I'm Eddie Kalegi. Tim Moore is on vacation this week, so
Yep.
we're bringing somebody back who was just here the other day for our NBA playoffs preview, the host of the Nothing But Sports podcast, Rahil Jaiswal. Thanks for coming back.
Thanks, Eddie. Thanks for inviting me. I had a great time last time. So this should be everything but this. This should be the same.
Yeah, so today we're going to do a little discussion and debate topics around the world of sports. NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs in full swing. Baseball has had a lot of action recently. And I'm going to actually start on the baseball front with the New York Yankees, who I know they're playing the Red Sox right now, so that's not really a tough challenge. And you know
No.
how they're going to just march through the Red Sox, the Orioles. They have the Mets this weekend. I'm a Mets fan. I'm petrified about that series because I know that's going to be a mess for the Mets. But the Yankees now have a lot of injuries to worry about. Stanton, LeMahieu, Chapman is coming back from COVID. Judge claims he's 100%, but he just got put on the DL, so he's going to miss some games. Is there reason to have concern for the Yankees going forwards once they get into the playoffs against teams like Oakland and Cleveland?
See, it's frustrating. As you know, Eddie, I'm a Yankees fan. So the fact that every year that it's something. I mean, it started with Giancarlo, and I said it. As soon as one comes, another one. The next thing you know, Aaron Judge. Then you get bad luck with DJ LeMahieu, who's I'm pretty sure probably has maybe the second best batting average in the MLB to this point in the season. So it is a big blow, but again, you mentioned they're playing the Red Sox. I think tonight's their final game of the series, which should not be a huge thing. I'm more concerned for the series coming up with Tampa Bay because Tampa took 3 out of 4 against them. I know it's at Yankee Stadium, but still, I think that's what they have to worry about. And if they can't get healthy for the postseason, then you have to worry about a lot of these teams because a lot of these teams have been playing great baseball. The A's have been playing great. Cleveland's got some great pitching. I think you also have to worry about Tampa Bay because Tampa Bay has the pitching to keep the Yankees down. So it's a tough series. It's a tough thing, but I mean the depth has to step up. They've done it every year, but we'll see. But it's definitely something to be concerned about if you're a Yankee fan.
Think they're going to be all right because you think about all the depth that they have. You've seen guys like Mike Ford that come out of nowhere. Mike Tauchman. Ford had a big home run last night against Boston. Tauchman's been solid. Luke Voigt, you can't forget about him. Gary Sanchez, as long as he stays healthy with his bat, he's been solid. He had a slow start to the year, but he's starting to figure things out the last few days. And thinking about the American League, there's a lot of teams with holes. The Oakland A's, they could go 45-15 in the regular season, but I do not have faith in them in the playoffs because they have failed every time they've been in the postseason, including twice against the Yankees, and they really struggle sometimes in big spots. They get taken out by Tampa Bay in the wild card game last year. I know they're going to win the division this year probably, but I don't know how much faith I have in them. Houston, they're starting
Houston's
to
been
figure things out. They're getting
mhm.
better, but they're not as good of a team because they don't know what's coming to them. And then the Central, Cleveland, 2 of their pitchers are not even in the rotation right now because they're out partying, so that's not good. And the Twins, they're a team similar to Oakland because other than Nelson Cruz, a lot of their guys really don't have much playoff experience. Maeda's the only pitcher with a lot of playoff experience. So honestly, I wouldn't be too concerned about the Yankees, especially since right now in the first round they'd be playing against Baltimore. So
So that mhm.
that would be easy for them. It's just going to be interesting as they go forwards with the season, but they can't have any more injuries than
Yeah,
this. You've got your 3 best offensive players all hurt right now.
see, Eddie, that's the big if because it's very possible that tonight Gary Sanchez for some reason gets injured and goes on the IL. It's a real possibility, and DJ LeMahieu was one of the reasons why the team was able to keep on track when guys like Judge and Stanton went down because he just hits the ball. I mean, he's a hit machine. So to see him go on the IL is really tough. I don't know, Judge. I don't know if he said he feels 100%, but we'll see. Obviously, Chapman is coming back today actually, so that'd be a good sign. But it's always tough because I'd have to think that as of now, there's probably going to be more injuries coming to the Yankees.
It's frustrating. You're a Yankee fan, I'm a Met fan, and I feel like these two teams are the ones that get more injuries than anybody else,
Yep.
especially over the last 3 years. Of course, the Yankees have more depth and have handled them a little better than the Mets, but regardless, it's really hurt both these teams that have a lot of potential to probably go further. Of course, the Mets right now just completely depleted rotation. Then you've got Zach Wheeler coming in and pitching like a Hall of Famer against them yesterday, and Porcello imploding. You don't know with DeGrom's stiff neck if he's going to be ready for this week. Hopefully he is, but even beyond DeGrom, what else do you even have in this rotation? Now they've had to bring back Robert Gazelman, and other than that one funny GIF, he hasn't provided much here for Mets fans to really enjoy. So I don't know what to expect with them. But the NL East is where we're going to focus next. Because right now, guess who's still sitting in first place? It's the Miami Marlins, currently 9-5. They did go 2-4 this week, kind of came back to earth a little bit, but they are still maybe in the most comfortable situation of the 5 NL East teams, with the Braves with all their rotation issues, the Mets in the same boat. Washington has struggled this season, and Philly has no pitching. I'm going to go with a bold prediction right now. I'm saying the Marlins make the playoffs. What do you think?
Yeah, they've surprised everyone, especially after the whole COVID situation. I think they've bounced back great. They've bounced back very well. 9-5 at the top of the division is, a place you want to be. You talk about the Mets. Obviously, your Mets having problems with Yoenis Cespedes obviously opting out. Jeff McNeil still on the day-to-day IL, so there's a lot of problems there. Also, Philadelphia, we've said it from the beginning of this season. They just don't have the pitching. They might have a good lineup with Bryce Harper. They just don't have the pitching to compete. The Washington Nationals, everyone knew that would be a little bit of a question mark because Ryan Zimmerman opted out. Anthony Rendon is no longer there. Juan Soto missed the first couple games because of I don't know if it was a false COVID test. But, especially with the way they started last year, we knew they were going to have some problems. But, yeah, if you're Marlins fans, you have to be overjoyed with the way they're playing right now, especially considering how much of a disaster the beginning of the season was, not only for them, but just for the whole MLB with the outbreak of COVID.
Yeah, and it's just amazing how they've got this piecemeal lineup. Don Mattingly said the first game back, there were 8 players he didn't even know who they were. They were just there, that had just been added to the roster. And the fact that they came back and won 5 straight, really a great sign for the major leagues, too, that these teams are resilient, even if they have to take a pause with COVID, because we've already seen it with the Marlins and the Cardinals. Now we're seeing it right now with the Cincinnati Reds, though their situation, fingers crossed it stays like this, but they've only had the 1 positive test right now and 3 straight negative days. So right now they're in good position to maybe get back on the field in the next couple days. But overall, it really showed some resiliency. And hey, I heard about this too, and the Marlins have made the playoffs twice in their history. Both times they were underdogs and won the World Series. So not going to say, but, it's a crazy year. It's 2020. You never know. But they've been really strong. Baltimore has been surprising. The Tigers have actually not been as bad as people thought they would be. And they're bringing up 3 of their top 5 prospects, including Casey Mize, who many are thinking could be a Rookie of the Year contender going down the line. Really good pitcher. He'll be coming up this week, along with Paredes, who is one of their strong infield prospects, and Skubal, who's another pitcher for them. But I'm going to turn it over now to the NBA because the playoffs starting today, and we've got some really intriguing matchups. We talked about it briefly a couple days ago, but I want to start with Portland because, like we predicted, they got the 8th seed. They took down Memphis, really didn't have too much trouble with it, and now they're going against the Lakers. Jusuf Nurkic had 17 rebounds in the first half against Memphis on Saturday. And, I know Anthony Davis is going to be difficult to deal with in the post, but Nurkic is looking great coming back from this injury. Carmelo Anthony hit the dagger to defeat Memphis. I can't even believe we're saying that in 2020, but here we are. And Portland has a chance here against the Lakers. I still think the Lakers pull it out, but I think Portland could fight this 6 or 7 games.
Yeah, I think Portland does take 2. The only knock against them is they just don't play defense. For all as good as how they made I know Karis LeVert's a great player, but the way they made him look when they played, you would have thought you don't even need Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant with the way he was playing. And that type of defense, giving up 130 points a game, also against Dallas. I know Dallas doesn't play defense either, but they gave up 131 as well. First time they played Memphis in the bubble, they gave up 135, That's not going to fly against the Lakers. And I do think they will take 6 just because of the way, you mentioned Nurkic is playing great. He's really ascended from that injury. And that was the main question. How can he ascend to that level to give Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum some help? Carmelo Anthony, he's been proving all the doubters wrong, including myself, that he still can play at a great level. They do have good shooters in Gary Trent, who did go a little cold. But again, I just don't – I see them taking 2 games, but the fact is they just don't play good enough defense. Now, if they somehow figure out their defense to play good enough, then you can see this series maybe shifting. But even though the Lakers haven't looked that convincing in the bubble, I still think they pull it out. But it's good to see a matchup like this because I don't think in the first round, because the Blazers don't deserve to be an 8th seed in my opinion.
Yeah, and they wouldn't have gotten there if it wasn't for the bubble, but they end up with the 8th seed. And let's be honest, if the Grizzlies were there, they would have gotten crushed.
Yeah, they would have. I think that was the worry for most fans, and including myself, because I want to see a competitive series. And for all how good Ja Morant is, I mean, I'm sorry, but I think this Portland team does give the Lakers the toughest test. You can maybe make the argument that Phoenix deserved to get into the play-in game after going 8-0, but that's just the way it is because of their season before the bubble. But yeah, this is probably the toughest match. This is probably what the Lakers didn't want to happen. They probably wanted to see a team like Memphis, because no team in the NBA would ever want to see a Portland Trailblazers team like this in the first round.
Yeah, and you mentioned Phoenix. Honestly, I think the Lakers would have been okay with playing them. I know they were 8-0 in the bubble, but none of them have playoff experience. And LeBron and Anthony Davis, they could thrive on that so easily. Frank Vogel at coach as well. Monty Williams has experience as an assistant, but not a head coach in the postseason. Mm-hmm. So that's what we could keep an eye on for that. And I want to move on now. 2 more things we're going to get to today. We're going to shift over to the NFL. Next week, we're doing our full football preview with Zoe on the show. But the NFL recently, we never actually talked about it on the show, but they released the top 100 players ranking. And what I was stunned by was that Patrick Mahomes was ranked the 3rd highest quarterback.
I think 3rd or 4th. Oh,
yes.
Oh, wow.
4th
highest quarterback.
Third highest quarterback. He was 4th overall in the rankings. They put Lamar Jackson and Russell Wilson ahead of him. Listen, Lamar Jackson had a good year last year. Lamar Jackson has gotten beaten by the Chargers and the Titans in the playoffs. Lamar Jackson is a good running quarterback, but when he gets older, he is not going to be the superstar that he is right now. Patrick Mahomes has a better arm than Jackson. He's won a Super Bowl MVP. All those come from behind. He's been clutch in the playoffs. He's an NFL MVP. He has the single-season touchdown record. I don't see how you can put Jackson or Russell Wilson ahead of him.
I mean, you can make an argument for Lamar because, yes, he was the MVP last year, and you can make an argument for that. But despite you have to give some respect to the MVP. But regardless, Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL, and I don't think realistically there's any. And whoever says he's not, I'm sorry, you're either a Chiefs hater or you just don't watch football, because Patrick Mahomes, we look at the way he plays, he's the best quarterback in the NFL. Okay? And there's no debating that. I love Russell Wilson. He carried my fantasy team last year, but I'm sorry, he's not better than Patrick Mahomes. Now, Russell Wilson and Lamar Jackson are probably, I'd say, the 2 quarterbacks that are behind him for the number 1 quarterback spot. But Patrick Mahomes, I mean, we saw what he does, and the leader he has in him at such a young age. And you mentioned all the things: an MVP, a Super Bowl MVP, all come from behind victories. I mean, you said it yourself. He should be. In fact, he was number 4 overall on the list. He should probably be number 1 on that whole list. I think he's the best player in the NFL, and he's probably the biggest star in the NFL right now.
I agree with you on that, but you say he's number 1. I want you to give me 2 through 5. Who are your top 5 NFL players right now going into this season?
Oh, that's a tough one, because it depends. It really Does I think Patrick Mahomes would be number one. I think you can put Aaron Donald or someone like that in the number 2 spot. Then maybe Lamar Jackson, number 3, because he's the MVP. Then Russell Wilson around number 4. And see, it's really tough because there's so many different positions. Usually quarterbacks tend to dominate the list, but you can even put someone like, you can even put maybe a DeAndre Hopkins somewhere there, or Michael. I don't know about Michael Thomas, but maybe you can put a Julio Jones somewhere like that. A top wide receiver there at the top 5 position. But I mean, I think Patrick Mahomes deserves to be number 1 by a long shot.
Yeah, I agree, and I'd put Donald 2 and Lamar 3. I think about maybe shooting Michael Thomas up to 4, just with the last 2 years that he's had in New Orleans. That's going to continue with Drew Brees, still a great quarterback. And I'd think about it, but I'd put Russell Wilson 5. And you've got those 2 tight ends. Don't forget about Kelsey and Kittle. Maybe not top 5, but they can be right there as well. Next thing on football, I want you to give me one quarterback that you think people are hyping up too much going into the season, and one that we're not talking about enough.
One that we're hyping up too much, I've said it since the draft, is Baker Mayfield. I've said it since the draft. I just don't think he's as good as people think he is. I know he's a great quarterback, don't get me wrong, but he's not – I don't think the Browns should have spent on him number 1 overall. And I still think you saw last year how his numbers dipped. I think it was, 22 touchdowns, 21 interceptions. I've said it. His interceptions is a problem. He tries to will the ball in there, and that just results in him being picked off. He didn't throw to Odell Beckham Jr. a lot when he was, at some point you have to take a target at your number 1 wide receiver. There was, there was a whole thing about Cleveland. I do think they'll be better, though, because Freddie Kitchens is gone, but that's there. And a quarterback we're not talking enough about. That's a good question. I do think sometimes Drew Brees does tend to fall a little under the radar, also all time because of Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. But I mean, what he did last year was phenomenal. He officially broke the passing record. He had a great season. Yes, of course they fell short in the playoffs, but that was tough. But he's a quarterback that can, and especially considering he got injured last season and he came back just as strong. I think he's a quarterback that we tend to underrate also as just an all-time great, because he is maybe the most accurate quarterback in NFL history.
Yeah, I agree with you on Brees. I do think actually the quarterback we're not talking about enough, though, is Kyler Murray in Arizona, because he was very underrated last year, had a huge year there as a rookie, and nobody knew what to expect. He was still unsure which professional sport he was even going to play up towards just a couple weeks before the draft. He's undersized, just like Baker, but unlike Baker, he's been able to use his size, use his movement, and he's got good targets. I think Baker's got stronger targets than him until this year, but Kyler Murray has been able to excel with them, and now he's got DeAndre Hopkins to work with there in Arizona. In addition to Larry Fitz, I mean, he's got people he can throw to, and a quarterback that I think we're talking about too much and overhyping. Baker is obviously my choice, but you mentioned him. I'm going to go to somewhere else, and he's actually the quarterback of my favorite team. It's Carson Wentz, because there's a lot of people who start saying that Carson Wentz is better than Dak Prescott. No, he's not. He is not, and he's not.
Wow.
I'm sorry. I don't like the Cowboys. I don't like Jerry Jones, but I'm going to be honest here. I think Dak is a better quarterback than Carson Wentz. Dak stays healthy. Carson Wentz, we thought finally last year was going to be the time. Maybe he can stay healthy through a postseason game. He did not make it through the first quarter. Josh McCown with a torn hamstring has to try to come in and try to beat Seattle, which obviously did not work out. And think about it. I know he had the one really good year where he would have won MVP, but that was also a few years ago. That's the same boat as Cam Newton is in. 5 years ago, he was the MVP. We don't know what to expect now. Carson Wentz, that was, one torn ACL and a few years back. And Nick Foles is the one who ended up beating the Patriots in the Super Bowl. I know Wentz had a great year. I don't know if Carson Wentz would have been able to beat Tom Brady in that Super Bowl. Nick Foles did get that done. I know Nick Foles has been pretty brutal anywhere else.
Outside of Philly, yeah.
Yeah, but he's thrived in the Philadelphia environment, whereas Carson Wentz just continues to get injured, and he goes through these stretches where he's really effective for a couple games, but then he kind of disappears and can be really streaky. I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback. I think he's still a very serviceable quarterback. And we know he's the franchise QB in Philly, where, the questions loomed when they drafted Jalen Hurts. But I see Jalen Hurts used, if he gets used at all, in like a Taysom Hill kind of scenario. Not as much as like replacing Carson Wentz or anything. I think the real pressure one is Jordan Love going to Green Bay. Yeah, but Hurts, he's not stealing Carson Wentz's job. Don't get that mixed up. But I just think people overhype Carson Wentz. And frankly, I think Dak Prescott, even though I hate the Cowboys and love the Eagles, I think Prescott has the edge at QB over Carson Wentz. Last thing for today, I want to get into a couple of game predictions in the NBA that are going on tonight, the two nightcap games. We're going to start Game 1 between the Philadelphia 76ers without Simmons, probably without Embiid, against the Boston Celtics. Who do you got in this one?
Well, you said it yourself. No Simmons, no Embiid. Boston is fully healthy. Jason Tatum is, I've said it before, he's emerged as a great superstar. Jaylen Brown has been shooting the basketball really well. Marcus Smart's been playing the great defense. Tatum's going to be the leader of that team because of Kemba's minutes restriction. But Boston should win this one fairly comfortable I'd say fairly comfortable, and I should probably fairly comfortable in this series.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think this is going to be much of a contest in this series. I think maybe 76ers can steal a game, but
yeah.
Yeah, but if Embiid's not healthy, that takes away the only possible advantage that they'd have, and that's down low. If he's gone, they have no advantage on the court because they've got Stevens has the coaching advantage, in my opinion, over Brett Brown.
Yeah.
Of course, you've got the superstar presence in Kemba Walker, even on a minutes restriction, and you've got much better guard play with Tatum and Brown and also Gordon Hayward. So I'm going with the Celtics by about 20 points tonight, and I think they're going to wrap up the series in 5. Nightcap tonight on ESPN, Luka and KP, their first appearance in the postseason together, facing off with Kawhi and the Clippers. Who gets it done tonight?
It's the Clippers, and the Clippers take this series. But I've said it, I mentioned it earlier. Dallas just does not play defense. I think Luka's going to be fantastic in the postseason, but their lack of he turns the ball, an elephant in the room that people don't talk about is he turns the ball over a lot, and he does it, and that's something he needs to improve on as well as the defense. So on the premise of just that they don't play defense and the Clippers do, I think the Clippers do win this. You've also got the experience, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Lou Williams, Patrick Beverley. They've all been in the playoffs before, Montrezl Harrell as well. So for that, I'm going with the Clippers.
I actually think Dallas might steal Game 1 tonight. I just feel like they're going to come in all fired up, and I think Doncic and Porzingis have the potential to have a big game. I think the Clippers are going to win the series in like 5 games, but I wouldn't be surprised because we've seen times where the Clippers kind of lapse a little bit and get a little too comfortable. And we've seen that with Kawhi in the past, with San Antonio and with Toronto as well, and with Paul George in Oklahoma City. Just think about how that ended last year against Portland. So I think tonight we might see a big-time performance. I'm saying a triple-double from Luka. I think a solid game from Porzingis as well. Dallas takes Game 1. Clippers then get motivated and storm back and win the series. But Rahil, it's been great having you here once again today on Sports Beak. You also host a podcast. Why don't you tell us a little about that and how people can find it?
So you can go on to either Anchor FM, which is an app on your phone. Just download it, and you can search in the podcast Nothing But Sports. And it's also on Spotify. You can go to Spotify, search up Nothing But Sports. I just did an episode a couple hours before coming on here. So just please check that out. And, yeah, that's pretty much it. Again, it's another sports one. We talk about NBA, NFL, MLB, all the sports. So
great to hear. So Thursday, the legend himself, Tim Moore, will be back from his vacation, and we'll be talking about yesterday's NASCAR race at the Daytona Road Course and all the action in the NBA and NHL playoffs from this week. Until then, for Rahil Jaiswal, I'm Eddie Kalegi. We'll see you next time here on Sports Speak.